Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome to Radio Free Wall Street. 5 o'clock New York time every single day. And we've got a show for you today. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Donald Trump has crossed the line to me. And I'm very concerned. I want to share it with you. And forget about politics, Democrat, Republican, all that shit, okay? As you know, I've been pretty upfront about my problem with Donald Trump, my problems. I've been pretty vocal about my opinion that, it smells like he's guilty to me. And I've asked you that, I respect that a lot of you may support him, and I can understand why. But I think we have to understand that the country's got to survive after Donald Trump, right? In other words, he's the president. And, maybe he's around 6 more years, but that's it. And America's going to grow old a lot longer than that. And the problem we've got is, the problem I have is, and I want to be very clear here, is that I don't like, you got the bullshit and the spin. I want to tell my story. I want to go before it, but my lawyers told me no. And then we got the shit about, well, who signed the statement, made the statement about what went on with the adoption agency meeting at the Trump Tower and all this crazy shit. Okay, it's beyond this silly stuff. Now, I have a problem with a president who is so loose with the facts that Donald Trump is. I have a problem with the trade war. I think it's a disaster. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. It's going to make us a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. If you know what to trade in this thing, oh my God, it's a bonanza. It's a bonanza. Okay, we're making a killing in oil, especially in our enhanced positions. We're making a killing in precious metals that they can't find their way. We're making a killing in the stock market rallies when we short against these next one, getting ready to go in again. Making a killing on the stock market, rising interest rates. Okay, so it's been a great year for us. Okay, on the enhanced positions, and everything else we're doing is reversing very rapidly. So, there's great prospects for this. The problem we have is this. Okay, and the question we have to ask ourselves is, where does this go? I really, I want you to unhook. I want you to forget the deep state. I want you to forget Democrat, Republican, conservative. I want you to ask the question this. Do you want a president that's above the law? Do you want a president that says, hey, I can interfere in an investigation because I'm the boss of the investigation. I can stop an investigation that I don't like. I can commit a crime and pardon myself. I mean, that's basically what the president said. So basically what you've got is a dictator. You've got someone above the law. You've got someone that basically can do whatever they want. I mean, can he suspend the Constitution and pardon himself? How far does this go? Now, we're in a danger zone because, like I said, Donald Trump is doing this. And hear me carefully. Let's suppose you love Donald Trump. You want your red hat and you support him, okay? God, that is your right. And it's your right to be vocal about it. And I defend it, okay? And that's what makes America great. We don't have to agree, but we can agree to disagree. We can agree to be friends. We can agree to let the voting system straighten this thing out, right? And just, if he wins the election, he wins the election. In other words, Donald Trump won the election. I sure as shit think there was collusion with the Russians, which doesn't make any difference to me. Russians collude in elections and other people collude in elections, and elections are a dicey affair. A win is a win. I mean, you remember the hanging Chad? Well, I really don't think Bush really won that election, okay? But the results were the results. And you live with it. That's a democracy. It's imperfect, okay? So whether Donald Trump won the election by collusion or not is not an issue to me. If he has been sold out and compromised by the Russians, that concerns me. Let's suppose that's a deep state conspiracy and not true. But now I've got an issue that I think we can agree on that's very dangerous, and that's Donald Trump saying that he's above the law. That's Donald Trump saying that he regards his ability to pardon as the commander-in-chief and head of the Justice Department the ability to stop an investigation, start an investigation, to interfere in an investigation, and that cannot happen in a society of laws and rules. It gets down to principle. No one's above the law. Now, I admit that there's privilege that extends to the president, right? In other words, you can't have everybody suing him for nonsense, time-wasting suits and have to answer them, okay? There's got to be some limited immunity from a lot of nuisance suits. Okay, that makes sense. But we now have a full-blown federal investigation. If Donald Trump stops his investigation, that is a constitutional crisis. Now, we've been all watching to see if he's going to do that, okay? He is the head of the Justice Department. He can hire and fire the prosecutor that's investigating him. Now, let me say this to you. It goes beyond that issue. The issue that has been brought into play today is Donald Trump's belief that he can pardon himself. Now, think about how ridiculous that is. The president has the ability to pardon. Okay, that's something that is in the Constitution. I don't necessarily like it. I don't necessarily agree with it. I have a little bit of problems with that. To have a pardon commission would make more sense to me, but to give him the ultimate authority. By the way, I also feel that the office of the president has too much power. In other words, it's morphed into a situation that by ruling by these decrees, which is what he's doing, is very, very dangerous. It reminds me of the kings of the olden days where they had a little signet ring and they made a decree and put the wax seal on it, and that was law. Now, for example, I don't think the president should be able to make war anymore, and we've made war, and they've been wars, and we don't call them wars without Congress, okay? I don't think the president should have a right to make these proclamations that I have the rule of law. Okay, I'm very disturbed by that. For example, Donald Trump has declared in his supreme powers, President of the United States, to defend the United States of America against our foreign enemies, that he is putting tariffs against steel and aluminum because it is a threat to the military structure of the United States of America. And that is steel and aluminum from Canada. Now, you'd have to be a congenital idiot to believe that shit. It is a stretch, it is ridiculous, and it shows you the abuse that happens with these proclamations. Now, Donald Trump was very critical when Mohammed Obama did it, and it was a mistake, no doubt, but it's a mistake that Donald Trump is doing it also. Now, let's go further here, okay? Let's try to unpack this thing, no matter what your point of view is, and let's look at the ramifications, okay? See, when you really, look, I'm really good at analyzing things, and one of the things I've learned to do is get me out of it, okay? In other words, if I analyze a market and I let my personal wishes get in the way, I can't make any money. And I'm real good at analyzing a market and real good at seeing what's going on. That's why you got this oil wipeout that is so kind for us, and that's why you got the precious metals that, remember I was one of the original metal bugs, gold bugs, and it's a different world now, and it's no longer the case, right? So by having the ability to get a side of myself and my opinion out of it, it makes me really good at analyzing things. So let's get our opinions, whether we love Trump or hate Trump. Let's get out of the fact that there may be a big conspiracy of embedded bureaucrats and Democratic FBI agents that are out for him, okay? Let's just put that aside. I'm not saying it's true, untrue. I'm not saying it's not a factor, but let's break things up in pieces and analyze it, okay? Like I told you a long time ago, if you can't generalize, you can't analyze, okay? And if you can't analyze and generalize, then you can't have an opinion, and so you're just kind of there, just vacillating back and forth by who you talk to last. Now, the big problem we have with Donald Trump is this investigation, okay? Now, he claims it's a witch hunt, okay? And it may be. I can make a scenario where it is. I don't believe so, but it could be. And the fact is, it's not that long of an investigation. The fact that no collusion has been proven is not a valid statement because the investigation hasn't gotten far along enough to where we're bringing indictments, and that's where we know what they've discovered, right? So that's an unknown. Now, we've got another situation where there have been, 15, 20 crimes, 5 people indicted. Okay, so to say there's nothing there is not necessarily the case. To say the investigation has gone far afield, well, that's what investigations do. That's just the nature of the beast, and that's just something that's part of our system of government. Now, the question for you is, do you want a president who's above the law? Do you want a president that can do whatever he wants to do, round up people, execute them, and create horrendous crimes and pardon himself? Now, I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm not saying we're going that far. But the question is, in principle, is a president above the law or not? And the answer is no, hell no. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is, can a president pardon himself? And the answer is no, hell no. Now, in the case of Nixon, he got himself pardoned by Gerald Ford, okay? So there are cases where these pardon laws are used to resolve issues. Nixon was a big constitutional crisis in the United States. The country was divided against itself. The Vietnam War, right or wrong or whatever, was horrendous for the country. And Nixon got the brunt of it. Now, I would suggest to you that Nixon was a mere break-in, okay, and not anywhere near to the things that may have gone on with the Trump run for office and may have gone on in his White House. And there's a lot of questions that have to be asked. I mean, now, I'm not saying yes or no. It's just these are questions you have to answer. If, and I know it's a big if, and I know it's probably a deep state conspiracy for a lot of you, But if Donald Trump is on a videotape with kinky shit, I don't care. I mean, if someone had a video of me with 4 girls and showing myself I'm the stud champ, I want to show it to all my friends. Say, look, I told you guys, I am a stud, okay? I don't give a shit who sees it. I don't care what happens with it. It makes no difference to me. But if it did make a difference, then someone has power over you. So do people who've gotten these bimbo eruptions put down, do people who may have videotapes have power over Donald Trump? And the answer is yes. Only because he doesn't want them to come out. So if there is a lewd tape in Russia, which they're very much known for, and if it's kind of kinky stuff on there, and if Donald Trump doesn't want it to come out, well, that means somebody in Russia has power over him. If. Now, let's face facts. It was a bizarre election, okay? And mistakes were made across the board with Comey. Did she, didn't she, will she? And big deal out of the files that were kept on that server, okay? Now, there was a dossier paid for started by a Republican, by the way, who died under mysterious circumstances, and then picking up by a Democrat. And that's known as a dossier. That dossier, by the way, has not been proven not to be true, but it's not been proven either way. But there are a lot of elements of it that have been collaborated. So there's enough here to say there's a smoking gun. Okay, now as far as the FICA warrants and all that, well, reality is that people in the Trump campaign, including his campaign manager, had massive Russian connections, had many contacts with Russian unsavory characters, and they had them before the campaign, before they started associating with Donald Trump. They had them during the campaign. They had them during the transition. And they had it after Donald Trump was sworn in. So there is a security breach, okay? In other words, what did Flynn and these guys up to, okay? Were they compromised by the Russians also? I mean, they were very close to them. That's a problem. And that's a security issue. So there are issues here that if we're being kind of like surgical and detached, saying that, hey, I want to investigate that. I want to know if a retired general has sold out to the Russians. I want to know if because of money dealing and big numbers he has got some problems. I mean, these are things you want to know. I mean, we've seen these spy things blow out of hand in all governments, including our own. So the question of the investigation, I think we'd have to say, is one that although we may not like it, and although it can get out of hand, and although it's really bad, it's something that has to be done. In other words, we have to have the power to investigate our leaders, okay? We have to have the power to investigate the people associating our leaders, and we have to ask the question, are our leaders compromised by foreign enemies? Now, to suggest that Russia is our friend, I think, is an absurdity, and that's again where I question Donald Trump's judgment. I mean, they have 50,000 nuclear warheads pretty much aimed at us. They are a communist dictatorship. Putin is a dictator, and it's not a free country. And it's a horrible place. If you've been there, I can tell you. The Russians are not happy people, and there's immense poverty. And the Russian communist system only works because they have the biggest landmass on the planet, and it's chock full of minerals. So that gets back to an issue that we've got to... listen to me, I want to help you something. I don't want you to be blindsided if things go bad. And sometimes when you get emotional with stuff, I don't know about you, but me, I have a disconnect. Now, I have a lot of people who rely upon me, okay? A lot of people. And I have a lot of money that rides on what I say, okay? And it keeps me up at night. And I take that very seriously. And I have opinions on market that involve people's investments and money, and I have to get it right. So my only stock in trade, like I told my daughter, I said, my business exists between my left ear and my right ear, from the top of my mouth to the top of my head. That's my business. And it's my brain power in analyzing that is what I've done all these years, and it's been for a wonderful life. And in analyzing things, you cannot ignore Donald Trump. Now, I know a lot of you have gotten tired of Trump, but a Trump, but a Trump, but a Trump, 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 this, Trump that, Trump that. And you go, stop with Trump already. And my answer is, boy, I'd like to, but I can't, because he has made himself a factor in the economy. For example, we haven't had a trade war before. I mean, the Bush, and that was minor. And by the way, we lost that war, just so you understand that. But it didn't spread. But the issue is that we now got full-blown trade war with all our trading partners, okay? So that means that it's an economic issue, and I've got to analyze it. And then I have to analyze Donald Trump to see how far he's taking this. And in being really good at my trade, and I am good at my craft, is what is his motivation? And, a lot of people say, well, why do you spend so much time watching the bullshit news, reading all these thousands of articles and all that? Because in how they lie about what they're doing, there's truth. Okay? So when you analyze things, you analyze what they say, what they don't say, what spin they want to give you is all important. There was no collusion. When a guy tells me about 5,000 times there was no collusion, to me that means there's a damn good possibility there was collusion. When Donald Trump goes on and on and on about this, and I didn't do anything wrong, and it's a witch hunt, well, what are you doing? Well, if it really is true, then you let the investigation take its course, and then the truth will come out. But if you're trying to stifle the investigation, if you're trying to swing public opinion against it, and he is, that, again, indicates guilt to me. Now, I've heard what he said, and I heard how he said he stopped the Russian investigation to fire Comey, and I heard him ask Russian for his help. So no one can bullshit me about he was joking, he didn't mean it, bullshit this. I am not an idiot. Sorry. I heard what the man said, and I'm taking him at his word. And I know what was a joke, and I know what was intended as a joke, and I know what was not a joke, okay? Donald Trump has been extremely troubled about this Russian thing from the start, and he protests too much. Now, again, whatever your opinion is, it's what he's doing. He's the one that says, I want to testify. He's the one at women that says, I didn't know about the meeting. Then he says, I knew about it. I didn't write the press release. I did write the press release. I mean, there's a lot of lies. A lot of people changing their stories. So there's a lot of smoke here. Now, yeah, a lot of this could be innocent, and I don't buy it. I don't believe Donald Trump makes a mistake with press releases. I don't believe he underestimates the media. He's a creature of the media. Now, when Donald Trump says he has power to pardon himself, okay, that is ridiculous and absurd. Why would you have a pardon power when you're trying to have a democracy, okay? He has the power to pardon others. He does. And his pardon powers is absolute and unconditional for the people outside himself. But to say he can stretch that to pardon himself is ridiculous. Now, by the fact that he is thinking that way, by the fact that's his opinion, has got to concern you. Now, you can love the guy, but listen, is it possible that you got a guy that's bullshitting you? Of course there is. I mean, you can trust, but not trust too much. So the question is that, there's a lot of sleaze shit that went on with his attorneys, former associates. For example, on this stormy weather deal, do you believe Donald Trump partied with her? I say, of course he did. Do you believe the stories and how they're changing? No, these are people that are lying and lying and lying on top of a lie to the point where it doesn't make any sense, okay? You can't ignore this. Now, the reason why is the Stormy Daniels affair is one example of like the Monica Lewinsky thing. The real situation with Donald Trump, it wasn't the affair with Monica Lewinsky. There was a lot of nasty shit that went on there that I can tell you for a fact I knew of, from Mena, Arkansas, to associates with him. I mean, there's a lot of nasty stuff. The Monica Lewinsky was just the tip of the iceberg. But it's a way in, okay? Now, with Stormy, well, it's opened up a whole thing about Cohen. It's now opened up a whole lot of Russian collusion with Cohen. It's opened up a lot of nasty things he's done that have the president's pecker marks all over it. So, in an investigation, you can listen, I've known some really top-notch investigators, and these guys are, it's not TV guys. These guys are real intellects. And they can observe and they understand human details unlike anything I've ever seen, okay? And they've always told me that in their major cases they've cracked, it's always been some small, obscure little detail that sometimes unravels the whole ball, the whole rolled up ball of string, right? So the problem we've got with Donald is that there's a lot of shit there that has to be considered. And there's a lot in his finances that, I mean, the man had bankruptcy 5 times. He had huge projects that went down. And had many nefarious characters that were there with money deals, okay? You can't ignore that. You can't just say, well, that's the deep state, and here's a big-time businessman. Well, no. You have to follow the pattern. Ethics lawyers and people I've talked to, Republicans, say they are not satisfied that the Trumps have isolated themselves from their business. There's a lot of questions of double dealing there. There's a lot of questions of Ivanka Favors getting copyrights out of China when no one else does, okay? So it's obvious a way that people are feeding money. From lobbyists are going to his hotel in Washington, D.C. You can't ignore these things. You can't ignore corruption. See, corruption is a terrible thing. And I've lived in corrupt countries, okay? And I've lived in places with crony capitalism. I've lived in places with dictators, and I've known some dictators. And I can tell you that it's to the detriment of society, okay? The general rule of thumb, the more corrupt the society is, the more poorer people are. Now, the more governments control a country, the more susceptible they are to shocks. Like, for example, China. China is a strange kind of capitalism, and you cannot deny the growth of the country, and you can't say that they did it on unfair trade deals. Somebody bought a whole lot of Chinese shit in America and paid for it and kept it. And they kept on buying it for whatever reason, okay? That's just a reality. So it's not like they made you give them money and that's how they cured their balance of trade profits, okay? Their surpluses. But there's a problem in the Chinese system, and that is because it's centrally planned, because there's very little disclosure about public companies, and public companies are Chinese government companies, and they're part of the army, and they're not. They're very difficult to analyze. And I can tell you that when you've got a country that's got debt 350 times GDP, something never seen in the history of the world before, that is a problem. Now, when I look at that debt with a closed society, and I look at a government that is trying to deal with that debt under the table, with a currency that doesn't float free, with markets that are not free and fair, without the rule of law, I know there's going to be a problem. So as a trader, as much as you have to stand and say, you know, Chinese are amazing industrialist people, they really are an amazing thing, there is a great big problem coming. Now, see, that's where I'm a trader. So I know that China's debt is going to wipe out. I know that China is going to throw the world into a debt crisis, and it's going to be very ugly. Okay? So that's part of my calculations. Let's take another side. We've got Italy. Italy has a lot of corruption, especially in the banks, okay? And bankers have to make a lot of loans they don't want to make, and they hold a lot of things on the books they shouldn't hold. And it is Europe's fifth biggest economy. And it's an industrialist people. They have luxury exports like nobody's business. They have food exports. I mean, they really have some fantastic things the Italians out of Milan do like nowhere else, okay? They really do. And they got a massive, you know, Rome is like Rome is like the world's biggest outdoor art museum, okay? It was an incredibly beautiful city. And huge, huge tourism, okay? And you've also got, you know, Venice, that's another huge tourist place, and they make a lot of money with that, okay? And the Italians really know how to put on a show. They really know how to build a suit. They really understand luxury, okay? Now, the problem with Italy is that it has massive debts. And it has the largest debt of any industrialized modern society. It looks like something out of, you know, so the shitholes of the world, okay? And it has a huge problem with bad debt. Now, I don't give a shit if anybody believes it or not. Italy has now got the five-star movement. It is moving into an anti-European way of doing things and looking at it. European regulations just don't get along with Italians. And the immigration policy has got Italians from one end of the country to the other pissed off. Now, I've spent a lot of time throughout Italy. I've spent a lot of time sailing on the Mediterranean side and the Adriatic. I know every one of the ports there. I have friends throughout Italy, and, you know, part of my, you know, the yachting season in my yachting days would start, you know, all the way over in Gibraltar, and then you'd work your way through Spain, and then you work your way around through Italy, then you work your way, you know, down south to end up in Palermo, and then you'd end up from there to Greece, and then you'd end up, you know, just this wonderful tie-in. Those days are gone. Okay, now basically I started sailing the Mediterranean, and by the way, that also included, you know, Portugal, and that also included on the Atlantic side England, all the way down the coast that way. Okay, so also the north coast of Spain. So I really know these places well. And what happened was the Caribbean became the place with the drug guys running boats there and using yachts as six-packs to bring drugs and, you know, capture a yacht, kill everybody on the boat, fill it full of drugs. It's got a clean number. It's not on a watch list, and sneak into the United States, okay? Or bring it as close to the United States as you can and scuttle it. So there's all kinds of nasty stuff. in a nasty world that you probably don't know much about. In the Mediterranean, the Mediterranean has changed dramatically because you've got this out of Africa situation. Mohammed Obama made a dream of the Arab Spring. It was really the Arab nightmare, okay? And North Africa is a hell zone, okay? And I know the coast well. And it's a problem all through Spain, all through Italy, which has a massive coastline and, juts out there. It's a massive problem for Greece. These people are in the Mediterranean on unbelievable things. I mean, truck tire inner tubes, okay, lashed together. I mean, just incredible things because they want to get out of those African shitholes of Muhammad created, and they're willing to die to do it. So you've got the refugee crisis. Now, I'm presenting this so you understand the influence of Donald Trump in these things, okay? America has made itself a much bigger refugee crisis than we really have, okay? Percentage-wise and damage and culture-wise and all that. Spanish people that come into America have a very similar ethic, a very similar religious background, a very similar systems of government, very similar customs, okay? And as you well know, if you open your eyes, they meld well into society. I mean, the Cubans have done remarkable jobs. In spite of the bullshit, but before the Cubans got to South Florida, it was a shithole, okay, other than Miami. And they really built the place, okay? And they've really made a major contribution. And it's a teeming international port of call, okay? And, we've all had benefits from our immigrant policies. The problem is with these immigrants that are coming now from Mohammed lands, a lot of them are so lost culture-wise and so confused that they're easily radicalized, okay? I mean, they see a woman with shorts on, they see her arms, they think, well, she wants to be raped, and it's okay. So the culture is so alien to our traditions and customs that it creates a problem. Now, the problem you've got is that politicians like Donald Trump and like the Five-Star Movement are fanning the flames, okay? Now, as an analyst, it's my job to understand where that's going, okay? Italy has got a debt problem, and their leaders can hide that debt problem under an immigration problem. Okay, the immigrants did not whack up 110% of GDP in Italian debt. Italian banks need billions, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. Okay? The European Union, has got a problem in that it doesn't want to be a debt union. In other words, you don't want to have the northern countries financing the southern countries. You got just as big a problem in Spain. The president's got us kicked out on his ass. You got Barcelona that wants to leave in that whole area. So it's a big deal. Now, let's get back to Donald Trump. We have a system of check and balances. Every president in my lifetime has had a special prosecutor investigating some damn thing. If it was not Iran-Contra, it was Watergate or Monica-gate or whatever the issues were, okay? It's just part of the conflict that we have. See, democracy is a conflict resolution system. And it's one based on compromise where the principle is not everybody gets everything they want, okay? And it's a complicated give and take that involves constituencies, it involves lobbyists, it involves big business, it involves masses of people, it involves the media. And it's a nasty, ugly process, but it's worked and it's held us in good stead. Now, you've got a strong president coming on who's a populist like Donald Trump, which is more like the fascists we've had in Europe than something Americans are used to. Although we've been through that, the Great Depression had populists involved in that whole issue, okay? So we're now moving down a road where you have to analyze it and go, okay, Donald Trump's got a deep state conspiracy. Donald Trump wants to pit the Democrats against the Republicans. The animosity is huge. I mean, one of the hallmarks of the Trump presidency is there's been no compromise with Democrats at all. And both parties are to blame, okay? And Pelosi's a little bit of a numbie. There's no doubt about that. And we got plenty of nummies in the Republican side, including a Speaker of the House that announced he's leaving and made himself powerless, okay? That's a very interesting bit of palace intrigue here. But we have taken a very bad turn of events in that Donald Trump has attacked violently the Justice Department, his Justice Department, the FBI, his FBI, and he is now destroying the system. Let me give you an example. We have such animosity in the United States against authority between the have and have-nots that we're killing cops like never seen before, okay? who are or a symbol of authority, and they're an easy target. Okay, they're in touch with you, and that indicates the frustration and the hostility. Okay, you got kids going to schools doing shoot 'em ups. Okay, that again shows a ugly turn for the society. Forget about how many guns you have and all that. There's something going on. If it's medication in the youth, if it's media, internet, whatever, you have to walk away and say there's some ugly shit going on here. Now, I specialize in ugly shit. Okay, when ugly shit gets out of hand, I make money. Okay, whether it's a dictator and a rising in Latin America countries, or it's Cyprus banks wiping out, or the Greek crash. I mean, that's the stock of what I do. I look for these things, and I find opportunity, both in good upheavals and bad ones, okay, which I really, really don't care what they are. So now my radar's going off saying, we got a real problem with Donald Trump. We have a real issue here in this populist uprising. We have a real issue in his attacking the FBI and institutions of the Justice Department. And we have a real issue in his vision for America's future with coal mine galore, steel mills, and, a deep state conspiracy besides. Okay, in other words, his view of the world, his view of America, where the economics should go, is not valid. Okay, and he has the ability to compromise people. Okay, one of the most biggest dangers of Donald Trump is that the Republicans know he's full of shit and they can't say so. Now, I talked to a lot of these guys. I'll tell you, they're telling me that, it's my party. I got a problem here. Are Republicans whore? Yeah. Are Democrats whore? Yeah. Are politicians whore? Yeah. Hell yeah. So the problem is that they can't come up against this stuff. I mean, unless like Tillerson, when they call him a moron, which he is, there's a punishment that is exacted. Donald Trump's a very vindictive man. He's extremely aggressive. He listens to no one. And the problem is that he doesn't, let's say, put it nice, he doesn't do his homework. So his analysis of things are not deep, they're not intellectual, and oftentimes they're wrong. But we've now crossed the line. And remember, I'm trying to present to you how you analyze things and how you look at them, okay, so that you can make money. Because remember, my product is profit. So that's what I sell, that's what I make, that's what I do. I mean, I turn trades into profits. And when you do that, then the way you make profitable trades is obviously, if the market is right, I have no opportunity, either going up or going down, okay? What the way my business works is I look for where markets got it wrong, and then I position myself to capitalize it. Now, a good example is the gold and silver has been wrong, and we've capitalized and made money on it. The people that were against the dollar pushing it down were wrong, and we were short the pound and short the euro and still are, and made money on it. The stock market was, as I said when I started my 180-day countdown last year, a bubble that was going to burst. It burst. We had two nice, really down moves. We capitalized on it. We've got a situation where the oil market was a rigged, put-up job, ignoring the fundamentals of U.S. production. We're capitalizing as we speak. So that's what I do. Now, one of the big things also the interest rates. In other words, we understood that the Fed was raising rates. We understood that it would not be one and done, and we so stated 4 rate increases this year. 3 more next year, and we have a flattening yield curve, which is flattening, and we position ourselves, as you know very well, in 30-year instruments, and life is nice, okay? So that's what we do. That is the job description. Now, what makes my job easier is that everyone, go with the flow, the trend's your friend, and there's a lot of bogus, bad information, and it's called circular marketing, where a guy, I'm supposed to buy high tech, okay? Well, look, over here I'm seeing someone talk about high tech. Oh, look, over here. So what's happening is everywhere you go, you're hearing that same opinion. So it must be valid. What you don't know is that you're circle marketing. I mean, they're targeting you and then coming at you from different places by how their analytics show how you think and how you search the internet and all that. So you're being set up for the fall, which is good for me because it makes my job easier because I've never seen more people with their life savings positioning properly. It's kind of like BlackRock, what they did with the toy store, okay, Toys R Us. I mean, they basically put them out of business. Toys R Us had a great franchise. It could have gone into the internet. It had the locations, had the buying power, and they basically slit its throat. Okay, basically they paid themselves huge fees, gutted the management, gutted all the brains out of there, and bankrupted it. And it was not an accident. Okay, so that's just the example of what these huge conglomerate, unregulated entities can do. a company like BlackRock and State Street and Goldman Sachs should not be allowed to be that large and should not be allowed to indulge in trading and buying businesses and all the things they do. They shouldn't be involved in handling people's retirement accounts, okay? So retirement accounts going into dog shit corporate bonds are going to wipe out. High yield, which is another word for junk shit, it shouldn't be allowed. International opportunities in the BRICS and foreign markets is no place for retirement money. So this is one of those generational things. They've been doing it for 20 years. And then the next 5 years when it wipes out and massive number of baby boomers are living in tents in the park, then people learn the lesson and not do it again. Unfortunately, people are buying into this high-yield shit. It's a wipeout. So this gets me to Donald Trump. The problem you have is that he believes he has the power to pardon himself. He believes that he cannot be forced to testify under oath. And he believes he has the power to stop the investigation. And listen to me, that is not a negotiation or a deal. That is his belief. That is his position. And the reason why he's taking it is that I believe he has a huge, huge liability in his investigations. And I believe he knows, and you'll find out, that a lot of very nasty things are going to come out that involve him and his son, and his son-in-law and his campaign, his organization. And it was a dirty, sordid affair. Okay, now, remember, we're talking analysts. We're not talking about political beliefs and God and country. We're talking about making a freaking lot of money, okay? And the analysis goes this way. We believe that they will phony baloney the GDP and show growth that's not there. Just like they're gussing up the unemployment report showing that drug dealers and drug addicts who are not reformed, people with very low training, very low skills are being into the workforce. And they're counting it as a big boom in employment when it's not. It's basically replacing illegal aliens who were never on the books by putting them on the books. So basically the net number of people getting on the books are the same. The problem is, and if you know what I'm talking about, I think you might, if you've hired people who've been here in America illegally, and if I hire those people, they are really hard workers. They are really, really loyal. And that is not the people being replaced with. And so you have this huge shift, like I've been telling you, in McDonald's. You're not going to have that girl with the pimple faces there and that guy there, at the cash register. It's going to be gone, kiosk, okay? And we're going to eliminate people in these low-paying jobs. We're going to have machines that are going to, cut your grass, and you already got them mopping your floor. Robotics is going to be there in the factories, and this is going to come in the next 5 years. It's a big thing. Now, back to Donald Trump. So the way we read this is the following. Donald Trump doesn't make sense in what he's doing with the trade wars, doesn't make any sense with all these government policies unless you think about playing to Billy Bob. Now, there's nothing wrong with being Billy Bob, but let me ask you something. Would you want Billy Bob to be your brain surgeon? Would you like Billy Bob from the Chevy factory to invest your money for you? Would you want to date your daughter? Okay. Do you want to live in the trailer park with him? Do you want to take the drugs with him? Okay, that's what he's doing. So the answer is no. Okay, but these people get the vote. So Donald Trump consistency has a lot of these blue-collar people who love Trump no matter what. And Donald Trump's got to create a simple fairy tale picture of, whoa, here's the deep state. Every president's had a deep state conspiracy. Conspiracy is the order of the universe, okay? One conspiracy, the Bilderbergers, a conspiracy of Standard Oil, or, AT&T was a conspiracy. The conspiracies and collusion is how the world works, okay? So by vilifying it, what you're doing is you're inserting into this thing a hostility that can spin out of control. You're also inserting class warfare in the equation. And will Donald Trump divide the country, have class warfare, destroy the institutions of the FBI and Justice Department if he keeps in office? You're damn right he will with glee. And that's what he's doing. Look at the trade wars. Donald Trump knows that there's no trade danger from Mexico or Canada or Europe to the United States or our military because of steel and aluminum. It's pandering to his group. So now this is where the wisdom comes in. Okay, forget. Now remember, we're not political. We want to make money. So obviously, there's a trade war that's stupid. There's a trade war that can't be won. A trade war that's running out of control. Now, of course, I pointed out to you that you got a problem. Let me put it this way. Yes, China's taken a vast amount of money in their balance of trade surplus, but all that money came back to the United States in treasuries, right? So basically, we got their money anyway. And we paid the lowest rates ever for it, so who skunked who, I ask you? And if China wants to sell steel and aluminum at a loss, then the economists will tell you, buy it from them. Now, what happens when we push China over the edge? What happens when we bring down their fragile banking system? I'm telling you for a fact it's fragile. Or their fragile real estate financing, okay? Do we really want a China that's in a debt crisis? Does that really behoove us? And the answer is no, it's really stupid shit. Now, what about Mexico? Do we really want Mexico where there's not the safety valve of the immigration, not the money coming back in, so that the only source of employment is drug dealers, the MS-13 gangs and all that? Well, no, the answer is no, that's not wise either. As I've pointed out to you many times, we had lots of trade deals where they could import duty-free. They could take advantage of our garment industry with no duties and all that stuff. And we don't make things in America. We don't have the sewing shops. But let me ask you, do we really want sewing shops with hundreds and hundreds of machines and people paying minimum wage, in sweatshops? Do we really want the sweatshops in America? The answer is maybe we should let some of these things go. And Donald Trump doesn't want to do that, so that's my next point. In other words, do we really want to bring back steel? Coal's not economical with natural gas. We have vast amounts of natural gas. Why isn't Donald Trump talking about all the jobs he can get in the oil field? Why don't we have an initiative, instead of fighting for steel, for fighting for pipelines? Why don't we fight with a great government program to make export terminals for oil? Okay, we're going to be the export powers. It's going to happen either way. So we're wasting our time and effort on coal, which is now seen its usage drop by 38%. Steel does not, you can't make steel economically, and the reason why is why? There's too many steel mills all over the world. It's not, rocket science. So we now got a president that, if you understand that, then you understand that what he's doing is using these issues to play to a blue-collar constituency that he has pegged as people, if he can get them out in droves enough, he can stop the Democratic rise. Now, why is he doing it? Well, whether you think so or not, Donald Trump is worried about impeachment proceedings proceeding against him, whether it's a deep state conspiracy, Democrats unfair, revenge, whatever. And he obviously feels that there's enough damaging information there that this is a threat to his presidency, and he's trying to preserve his presidency. So now that you understand that, and you look at the King Nunchucks, where you're making him king for a day, and you're not going to get shit, but you're going to get the Peace Prize, a little gold thing. Billy, you can see him jumping down on the stage. The John Deere tractor showing that to people. So, he's just going to, that's the road he's going down. So if you analyze that, then you understand that, it's a very clever strategy. In other words, if he had the truth on his side, which I don't believe he does, if he felt that he could stop the investigation without a firestorm that may just burn his house down, then the way he's going with the ghoul is discredit the Mueller investigation, talk about a deep state conspiracy, how it's costing a whole lot of money. It's mere millions of dollars, okay? They spend more than that warming up his jet plane for when he wants to go golfing, by the way. So it's much ado about nothing. And the reality is that he's trying to play to that crowd because of the end game, very simply this. The analysis is that if the Democrats take the House, they will immediately start, they'll wait for being sworn in, I'm sure, but they'll immediately start impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump, which will be widely publicized, and whether he's impeached or not will absolutely damage him and his reputation, which means everything to him. And he may lose critical support, and he may have a thing like with Cohen that, he's supposed to keep the bimbo quiet, and it's spun out of control. Now they got all his records, and it's opening up all kinds of investigations into all kinds of things. In other words, he should have been very happy to keep Stormy Daniel happy and quiet by getting this shit opening up. When I got a whole can of worms with taxis and Russians and financing and other bimbos, and it's a big problem. So as we move to the election, our analysis is that the economy will be in trouble. I'm hoping to get a nice little pop in the stock market so we can sell against it, both using our beloved instruments and our enhanced instruments. And we're moving into an area where this is going to be a big deal. And Donald Trump's stance on he's not going to testify, and he's not going to testify. And Donald Trump's stance that he can fire the prosecutor and fire the FBI director and fire the prosecutor and fire the prosecutor's boss is really things that he is considered in his quiver. And the power to pardon himself is critical to this, and his power to refuse to testify. So you've got a man who's positioning himself as a dictator, and that's very dangerous. Now remember, you got a lot of very wealthy people like the Koch brothers who are not going to leave this unanswered. So this is going to grow into a great, big, ugly, hairy deal, and you need to understand that. And you need to understand that as he moves forward, the economy suffers. Because the election is going to be really ugly and really divisive. And by that time, the Trump tax benefits will have faded, and the pump sugar high that they're, by the way, cooking the books right now in GDP to show numbers that are not real, like the games we're playing with the unemployment report, will be there. But cookbooks aren't real numbers. You know, if you got an account that says you got $5 million in assets and you don't, well, you still don't have the $5 million, although the books may show it, so it doesn't do any good. That's where Donald Trump's moving. So we see him moving into nasty attacks on our allies. We see him moving into trade wars that are going to spin out of control and go where you and I yet don't know. I can tell you that he has lost the goobers. You know, he's lost any credibility with the French, with the English, with the Germans, with the Mexicans, with the Canadians, okay? And they may end up slapping each other's back, but Donald Trump will never be able to go back to the detriment of America. Free trade is not necessarily fair trade, by the way, okay? You have free trade. It's not fair. You know, it's like, you know, it's just an imperfect world. I'm sorry to tell you, Dorothy. There's no Wizard of Oz, Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, okay? And so the reality is that you're hoping on the impossible. And where this is going is Donald Trump's actions today and his statements and the position he's taking has demonstrated a very dangerous attitude, a very dangerous strategy, and one that will further topple the economy. Now, remember, I've been telling you for a long time, the recession isn't concrete, okay? That is a done deal. We're going through recession. Yield curve is flattening. It's going to go negative. We're going to see a housing market collapse. We're going to see commercial real estate collapse, stock market collapse. Done. Donald Trump, no Donald Trump, whatever. Done deal. Hillary, we had the same thing. But now you're aggravating about the Donald Trump investigation and the trade wars we did not have to have, and the sanction and fight over what's going to go on with Iran, who's no good, rotten son of bitches. No doubt about that. See, it's not the question of the conclusions he's come to. Everyone knows the NAFTA agreement sucked and needed redone. Everyone understood the problem with the car manufacturing and the fact that it spun into a direction. Let me give you an example. The car manufacturing was to help U.S. manufacturers, okay? And the cars were supposed to come back in the United States. U.S. content was an all issue. Well, what happened? The German manufacturer went there and said, hey, we can manufacture and with a cheap labor market and go duty-free in America because the German factories have some of the highest labor costs in the world. That was an unintended consequence. Now, that could have been negotiated away, and the Germans realized it, and, you know, Volkswagen and Toyota, that's why they have plants in the United States of America. But now what's happened is you've thrown all that system of compromise, negotiations, and that out the window, and you now are headed for a trade war, and this is really good for us because it's going to further aggravate the recession. It will create the Trump depression. It will create, remember, you know, you're looking at Toys R Us, and these companies are going down. You're looking at the banks laying off 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people. Well, the banking job where you were a loan officer and the person that did legal research and these high-paying, high-skilled jobs that are being done by computers are not the same as the hamburger flipper with Julio or whoever is Big Bob is there with his tattoos going, hey, baby, you want a party? I mean, you're creating intolerable situations in the workplace. And trust me, I had hamburger franchises. I know what you go on with these things. And, you know, labor is a pain in the ass. It's the best, worst job you'll ever have. And now you're bringing another level of people that make it impossible. And that's the reality. And that's a result of the safety gap. So in other words, immigration, these people that came to America to clean your toilet and scrub your floors were providing a benefit to the economy at a great price, okay? So, you know, understand that there's always checks and balances. The reason things exist have a reason. There's benefits and there's secondary benefits, and you have to really analyze it. And in closing, I want to say this, that Donald Trump's in big trouble. This position he's taking is untenable. There will be a constitutional crisis. But he's not going to back away from this, okay? It's the only way he can save himself. And it's going to be a nasty election, and I believe that, and out on a limb here, that the Democrats are going to win the thing, and I think there will be impeachment. And if forget deep state, restate, all that shit, if there's impeachment proceedings brought against Donald Trump, they'll be successful. And this will create a huge crisis in America. And you can already see it happening, and huge class warfare. So we're in for very ugly times. And you need to prepare yourself, okay? Now, if Donald Trump wins this, you do not want to live in America where a man that claims that he can commit any crime and pardon himself, where he wins the House, he wins the Senate, and he comes in town with a majority, because this is going to be a man that's going to be an absolute Looney Tune, out-of-control flake, and it will end very badly.